Okay, good afternoon. My name is Junfeng Wu. I'm an associate professor at the University of Texas at Dallas. I'm very glad to be here to present some of my research about servant leadership. I'd like to first thank Greenleaf Center and the Greenleaf Scholars Program for funding some of my servant leadership research. My very first servant leadership research is called the Singapore Servant Leadership Project back in 2013. At the time, I just finished my first year at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and I was added to the project, and Chen Wei and I took the flight to Singapore, collect data on site with the support of Kent and his team, Louis and Yang. They were very helpful for us to collect data, and we even had dinner at Kent and Elizabeth's apartment in Singapore. That's very fond memory for me. That project turned out to be very successful because we have 2 publications out of that project, and these 2 publications are my most significant work that contribute to more than half of my Google Scholar citations. So I really count down the 2 papers to increase my Google Scholar citation count. And in 2016, when I was finishing my dissertation, which is also about servant leadership, I received the grant from the Greenleaf Center, Greenleaf Scholar Programs. At the time, as a PhD student, the financial support was very instrumental for me to complete my dissertation. More than that, the recognition of being a Greenleaf scholar was quite motivating and encouraging for me to complete my dissertation, and was very helpful when I was on the job market with the recognition of being a Greenleaf scholar. With that, I'm going to present some of my most recent research about servant leadership. I'm not going to talk about my dissertation. It's like 7 years ago, so it's pretty dated. So I'm going to talk about some of my newest research about servant leadership. So with that, so this is the best audience I can have for this research, for this presentation, because I don't have to convince you that servant leadership as a concept is very established and as a practice is very effective. We are all on the same page agreeing that servant leadership is a very established construct and it is very effective practice. So with that, with the growing research and quite considerable research about servant leadership, we know it's effective. We know that it's quite distinctive from other leadership approaches. What we don't know is, the question I ask here is whether and how servant leadership influence followers to confer status upon the leader. So we cannot talk about this question yesterday. So you may wonder why I asked this question, because we have servant leaders who serve at the highest level of the organization, right? So servant leaders, they are promoted, they are recognized. But we may also have servant leaders who may remain unnoticed, right? Because as Kent mentioned, servant leader will now say, I am a servant leader. I'm more servant leadership than anyone else. So promote me, elect me, they will now say that. So the question here is that conceptually, a traditionally thought mechanism or route for one to obtain status is through dominance, right? So we have leaders who they play power up. What they do is that they use threats, coercion, they apply pressure to influence others, right? That's how they gain status conferral from their followers. If you think about servant leaders, right, this is not the way for them to influence their followers. And if you think about dominance is the root or mechanism for one to obtain status, for servant leaders, they may lose status because of their lack of dominance, right? So dominant leaders may prioritize their own powers, their own influence, their own interests, right? This is not what servant leaders do. And like Ian mentioned, we have two mechanisms. One is dominance, and the other strategy of mechanism is through prestige. Prestige is very much based on one's competence, expertise, or knowledge that's valuable for group, right? So if one has this knowledge, skills, expertise, that is very instrumental and helpful for the group, that will help the individual to obtain status. Right? If you think about servant leaders, they are quite capable. They have the conceptual skills and capabilities for them to help their followers. Right? They are in a very good position to help their followers with task-related issues and problems. So if we think about this status attainment mechanism, servant leaders will gain status as a result of their competence. Right? So if we think about these two mechanisms, one is a negative mechanism that servant leaders will actually lose their status, and the other mechanism is a positive mechanism that servant leaders will gain status through this competence-based mechanism. You may wonder that what's the net status gain or loss for a servant leader? But we have a third mechanism. That's the mechanism of virtue. So if you think about a servant leader, a defining characteristics of a servant leader is that they prioritize follower interests, right? They demonstrate virtue. They are humble, right? They are humble. They are very generous. They prioritize followers' needs and interests, right? Even put a follower's interests and priorities ahead of their own. Right? So they demonstrate a morally praiseworthy characteristics that involves voluntarily self-sacrifice for the good of others. So, based on the servant leadership literature research and this moral virtue theory of status attainment, we can argue that through this route, servant leaders will gain status. Right? So we have three mechanisms here, and this is my research model. So servant leader will gain status, will gain follower status conferral through the virtue admiration mechanism, through the competence respect mechanism, but they will actually lose status through the dominance fear mechanism. And as a result of the follower status conferral, followers are more willing to defer to organizational policy and comply with organizational policy. So I conducted 3 studies to test the whole model. And the first study is to test the black box here, the 3 mechanisms. So I conduct an experiment with undergraduate students in a pretty large public university. So I manipulate servant leadership using established material. So what I find is that, as you can see that, in terms of indirect effects here, servant leaders, they will gain status through the virtue admiration mechanism. There is a positive indirect effect. They will also gain status through the competence and respect mechanism, which is also positive indirect effect. They will actually lose status through the lack of dominance, right? Dominance creates fear, and that's the mechanism for dominant leader to gain status. And in terms of servant leaders, they will actually lose status due to the lack of dominant fear mechanism. But overall, there is a net status gain, meaning that overall servant leader, they will gain status, despite that they will lose some status through the lack of dominance, right? And then I conduct another study to test the consequence of status using online sample with with a sample of full-time employees recruited from Prolific. What I find that for leaders who have a higher status, followers are more willing to comply with organizational policy and defer to organizational policy. So in my third study, I test the whole model. So what I find that again, with this example is a sample of working employees, a pretty large sample that I recruited from Prolific. What I find is that servant leaders, they will again gain status through the virtue admiration mechanism. They again gain status through the competence and respect mechanism. They will lose status through the dominance and fear mechanism. But overall, there is again a net status gain, meaning that overall servant leaders, they will gain status through the positive mechanism of virtue, through competence. And for leaders who have a higher status, followers are more willing to defer to the decisions they make. They are more willing to comply with organizational policy. So overall, these three studies suggest that servant leaders, right, even though they are not using strategies such as playing power up, using coercions, using threats, the typical way for a leader to gain status, right, their virtue, their competence will still help them earn the status, right, they deserve. And even though they will lose some status through the dominance and fear mechanism, overall the status gains through the virtue, admiration, and competence respect will outweigh the status loss through dominance and fear. Okay, that's all. Thank you.